Sorry we are late, everyone. There was a last-second pre-production meeting to where I thought it would be great to put on the tinfoil hats over that refereeing. Only one issue. I don't know how to make a hat. This is not arts and crafts time. This is Chatterbox Bearcats. And it's coming to you after a loss to Iowa State, where the Bearcats somehow covered an 11.5-point spread. That's the most impressive thing this entire day, because the Zebras did everything in their power to make sure that Iowa State had the advantage in this one. A little old-fashioned home cooking. Here's the thing. Iowa State's going to beat Cincinnati 79 out of 80 times. This may have been that one game where Cincinnati could have hung around and potentially hung in it if they had everything go right. And it was mainly going right until the fouls just started racking up, a discrepancy. You get a technical on Josh Reed in the game. It's like the nicest human being on planet Earth. I'd trust my grandma with them. And for God's sakes, they're teeing up him. They're teeing up West. They're killing momentum. Just one of those games where you legit want to pull your hair out. I've had gripes about internally. I've had gripes about my own players, our own players. You know, I've had issues. I've never once brought up the refs on this show. Never once. This is one of those shows where I'm leading it off. It was a Rob job. That was tough to watch. Shouts to Iowa State. That team's really damn good.
It's going to be really hard to win a game when you're playing not only Iowa State, but you're playing the Zebras and the refs too. And I don't think we've ever mentioned, I think you're right. I don't know if we've ever mentioned, we didn't even mention the reversed double dribble call that we saw the other night. Didn't even mention it because I hate when people do that, blame the refs. This was an abomination from a reffing standpoint. Like, I literally just tweeted, I'm like, I want a full-fledged investigation. They had money. I guess it was the alternate line because somehow we still covered this 11.5-point spread. I mean, we're talking phantom fouls. Jizzel James' fifth foul didn't exist. Guy just called it. He's like, this guy's cooking it. Like, let's get him out of here. I don't know what
foul didn't exist.
It is truly insane what we saw. I mean, the foul discrepancy was 24 for UC, 12 for Iowa State. And Iowa State is not the type of team that is, playing a finesse defense. Like, they're very hard-nosed. They're physical. There should be no scenario in which it's this wide of a gap. Like, UC was driving to the rim. I mean, the Day Thomas, I think, at the end of the half when he went up and got annihilated, no call. It was like a 5-point swing. Listen, credit to UC because, I mean, they had every right to win this game. I really believe that. They played great. The refs took control of this game. The refs took over this game and made Iowa State win it. Listen, I would have loved to see an actual straight-up game. Iowa State, would they have probably won? Sure. But at least give us a fighting chance. They took us out of this game. I'm blaming the refs.
It's one of those days, man. I mean, just the free throw line, that'll do it to you. You look at Iowa State's leading scorer in the game. He went 4-13 from the floor. They did the Cats defense did work on Curtis Jones. 12-12 from the charity stripe in the game. And hey, I'm not going through the analytics. If any Iowa State fans want to jump in the comments, you're more than welcome to, about how Iowa State draws more fouls than any other team in the country. I know one thing, they don't offensive rebound it well, actually lower than UC per game on the season, but they were excellent in the game today. So maybe could you point to it being, okay, it's just a little more physical. It's the technicals that get to me, man. Like when you're calling so many fouls to the point where the free throw discrepancy is 11 for Cincinnati and 30 for Iowa State, you have every right as a coach and as a player to voice your frustrations. Josh Reed doesn't seem like one of those types of guys to me that said something disparaging about the crew chief to where they needed to call that technical at the end there. Wes, dude, it's...
when they say that, they're always like, because a lot of times when you're watching it and it looks very, you're like, that was nothing. And you find out like the refs were saying, he said a couple trigger words that'll get you a tech every time. You think Josh Reed was telling somebody to bleep himself? I highly, highly doubt it. I mean, hell, we had Chase on the other day, and he's like, he comes to church with me. He's one of the most active guys in whatever. And there's no way Josh Reed did anything to deserve a technical foul. Honestly, I think that alone, if you give Josh Reed a technical, I think you got to turn in your jersey as a ref because it was bad. Granted, listen, there was a ton of things that UC could have done. It's not all on the refs. We know this. The second chance points and the offensive boards that we gave up. And I don't want to always point to effort. But at some point, find a man, block him out. We just wouldn't do it. If you could go and do some film study on this game, guys are just staring at the rim, not blocking anyone out, and that cost us. I mean, second chance points. I think Iowa State, it might have been like 18-0 in second chance points. Like that'll lose you a game too. So I mean, there's a couple things, but I just hate when the refs make it the ref show and basically take all the fun out of the game.
No, like I said, 79 of 80 times. I mean, Jizzel James doesn't go nuclear in the first half, and Day Thomas was hitting tough shots. Like that's probably one of those games where it's 12-15 the entire time. But since he was able to hang around so much, and then for Iowa State to just pull away exclusively on free throws was really tough. But the offensive rebounds, I mean, you got to give them full credit there. They were just out grinding the Cats. Clarification, this is why we when we do it live, we have the chat helping us out with people that listen to the radio call. Dan and Terry did say that the Reed technical was because he slammed his hand on the score table. So, okay, you can call that whatever. I just want I want to feel better about myself here.
No, Josh Reed is allowed to take a piss on the scorer's table if he wants to. You do not call technical foul. I don't care. Read the room, folks. Read the damn room. We got robbed today. We really did. This is the first time I'm saying it all year. We lost a lot of games, guys. This is the first time I'm saying it. We got robbed by the referees. We straight up did.
At least of a better game down the stretch. So over-exaggerate about a lot of things. I never put on the tinfoil hats when it comes to refs, and this is one of those days in 2 years of doing the show where I just felt like it was egregious. They were calling everything. They were calling everything, and then they weren't calling things on the other side. One of the stretches of this game that really changed it was a quick 5-0 run. Montalovic, I believe, Milan, he gets a three-pointer, but before that three-pointer, it was 2 free throws off a technical from Wes Miller, off one that should have been going the other way because Day Thomas got hacked. They should have called that foul. Instead, they don't. Wes gets the T 5 points later. You're like, we're screwed. There were a few times that I thought we were screwed in the game, but since he always did something to fight back, there was a Day 3 in the first half when UC was down 27-15 that really flipped it. I mean, since he had a 4-point lead, maybe a 5-point lead in the second half, a couple minutes in, but everything looks so damn hard. It was just Cincinnati playing perfect, specifically Jizzle James. This guy's turning into a star in front of our eyes. 9 of 16, 5 of 9 from 3, 25 points. That's now what, 3 straight with 25. He's averaging more than 20 his last 5 games. He's the alpha of this team, and you've dug yourself in a hole if you're Cincinnati. So you need wins, and that's why this one frickin' stings. You need this win over Iowa State because now you only have really 2 more opportunities for that marquee win, specifically one on the road against Houston, then whatever happens in the conference tournament, which we know is devalued a little bit as compared to years past. So you got to get some of these wins, and you feel like they had the opportunity to do so today because of the way Jizzle James was playing. 25 points, but he was the only guy that could really put the ball in the basket consistently at all in the second half. UC scores 31 compared to their 39 in the second half. And just, I mean, the numbers looked okay. 46% from the floor, 40% from deep. They turned it over much more in the second half than they did in the first half. Like, where was this game lost to you? Because we can be hyperbolic to some extent and say it was all the referees. Like Iowa State, give them their flowers. Like they're better than Cincinnati right now. I think we did see though that if Cincinnati can win some games here, sneak into the tournament, like they could be decent. We're playing better.
Iowa State is awesome. Iowa State is great. Like I'm jealous of, like, that's what I want UC to be, is basically this Iowa State program. Like they're fun to watch. They're tenacious on defense. I mean, they're swarming. I mean, we just played a great game. Like I really think we played a great game. We had a chance to steal a quad 1A, which I don't know if Wes has ever even won. Maybe that Illinois game, in his like second year. But we did everything to put us in a position to win this game. But as far as losing it outside of the referees, it's the rebounds. It really is. The second chance points, you cannot allow that to happen. Everything outside of that was awesome. I mean, guys hitting shots, contested shots. Jizzel James was ridiculous. He's looking like one of the best players in the Big 12 right now. But when you allow a team to get 4 or 5 shot attempts in a single possession, it's going to be tough. And when you get zeros from a guy like Dan Skillings, I know a lot of people are going nuts in the chat about Dan Skillings. It's going to be tough, man. I don't know the last time Dan Skillings suited up. He had 1 point, 1 free throw. That's going to hurt because we're going to guys like Josh Reed and Tyler Betsy instead of Dan Skillings right now, which is wild to say. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters throughout this season, but the fact that we're going to
Wasn't
and
he
I
our
love
leading
Josh
scorer
Reed.
last year?
I think so. I think by the end of the season, he was technically our leading scorer. Dan Skillings is now being like a utility guy that you throw in for,
When two
maybe
guys are fouled out. When two guys are fouled out, call a spade a spade.
Yeah, and Josh Reed was awesome again. Josh Reed was shout out to Ron Reed. Ron Reed liked my tweet earlier today. Father of Josh Reed. He raised a good son, and he got hosed on that tech. He got hosed on that tech, but we had good. Listen, our bench points were great. We literally had, I think, we had 9 bench points. Josh Reed with 6, Dan Skillings with 1, and Tyler Betsy with 2. So you need a little bit more from your bench. You 100% do. But at this point, we're playing like 7 guys really in the rotation. Where he has tightened this thing up pretty significantly over the last couple of weeks, which I don't hate. Like we were always saying, these kids are 18, 20 years old. Your best players can play damn near 40 minutes a game. I promise you they have the conditioning to do it.
All right, got so many topics I want to get into. One, what is the definition of a good program? We've had this debate on recent shows, and I want to really get to the bottom of it. Another could be just the foundation that Cincinnati's setting in terms of their guard play. I mean, Data and Jizzle, 38 of the team's 70 in the game today. But let's just start with the foundation right now. Jizzel James. You hope that if, they're running it back again next year with the shell of this team, you hope that part of that shell and the lead anchor is Jizzle James with the way he's playing right now. John White came on the last show. John from the Natty. I think he's from the Natty. And he said junior year Steve Logan is who reminds him of Jizzle James right now. It's like I got the front row seat to watch Steve Logan and my biggest years of fandom back in the day. In junior year, when he really started coming to his own, that's what Jizzle James reminds me of. And I saw it in stretches today. Times where since he was down like 8 points, you felt like the game was getting away from him. They needed to make some sort of a surge just to cut into all the destroying that Iowa State had done and get that 9 point down to 6 or get that 7 down to 4, something that makes you feel like you still have a punching chance entering the under 12 and then the under 8 and then again the under 4 timeout. And he just gets you that bucket, man. Whether it's, the behind the back step back 3 that is one of the most difficult shots to hit in basketball, whether it's the pull-ups, fading left, whether it's a step back J, whether it's a turnaround, like he has something in his bag for every situation. The issue is Iowa State was throwing doubles at him. He's getting it out of the double somehow. And that's where you have to exploit. And UC just doesn't have it, man. It's Jizzle James and pretty much everyone else right now.
I mean, I just did the math. His last 3 games, he is shooting 59% from 3. Before that, he was one of the worst starting point guards as far as 3-point percentage in the Power 5. He was shooting close to like 23%, something like that.
Law of averages is real.
It opens everything up though. Like now when he's shooting you're like, that's going in. I mean, once you can hit threes as a point guard, I mean, we've seen it kind of in the NBA right now. Like if you can't shoot threes, like you're not playing in the NBA as a point guard. You need to be able to knock down threes. And that just opens up his offense so much because guys got to get on him and he gets to that mid range. And he was missing that actually earlier in the season. And he has just completely turned this thing around. I mean, 24, 25, 25 in his last 3 games.
He looks NBA, dude. He looks NBA.
He does. Like your Ja Morant thing is crazy after watching the last 3 games because he looks like
it is in terms of the dunks,
dog.
Right? It's crazy in terms of the dunks because he's never going to look like Ja that way. But in terms of like being able to get a bucket and being so smooth, like he does have a little Ja to him.
Well, I don't know if Ja's the right comp, but whatever. We'll let it slide. It's
I'm
just
looking
more
for something. I'm reaching.
When we're watching Iowa State, though, my point is, like you said, nothing looked easy. I mean, he's getting swarmed by defenders, and he's still finding a way to get open looks and get that mid range. He had a couple nice layups and finishes. He was doing everything. I mean, mid range, in the paint, shooting threes, only had 2 assists. I mean, but the guy fouled out. He did have 5 turnovers as well. So probably need to clean that part up. But I mean, Jizzle James has been on an absolute tear. And it is Steve Logan-esque. Like, I can't remember. I guess you'd have to go back to like Cumberland with a stretch like this from an offensive perspective, maybe like Landers, Nolly, and DeJulius, but those teams weren't going anywhere. It just sucks, man. Like you said, it's like, was it too little, too late? We figured it out too late in the season because now we got to win 5 out of 6. And, one of those games against Houston, Baylor, West Virginia, those are going to be tough games. Now you got to win 5 out of 6. Like, if this team would have been able to figure this thing out earlier, we'd be sitting pretty. This looks like a tournament team, the way they've been playing.
We're a tournament team. I mean, they're absolutely. Go ask Iowa State fans right now and see if this team snuck into the tournament as a 12 seed, whether you'd rather see them or Vanderbilt or whoever it may be. And maybe that's a bad comparison. Maybe Vanderbilt would smoke our asses. I don't know, man. It's just been a couple
like
weeks.
SMU, like SMU. You think SMU's beating UC right now? I highly doubt it.
I think we're playing good ball, man. From Steve, everyone's pointing out how poor Skillings is playing. However, not alone. CMOS shooting 31% and 27% from the floor in conference play. Those are tough splits. Mitchell was in foul trouble. He only had 4 points in the game. Betsy, it looked like the moment was too big for him in the majority of this game. Just couldn't really get to any of his spots until he hit one late. Bandaogo plays pretty well, but the issue is those doubles that are coming at Jizzle. Iowa State's throwing you chaotic defense, and what you need there is a little tic-tac-toe. We talk about it. Just find the open man, cut to the basket, play smart basketball. And I mean, Aziz is just, especially when he's out there with Mitchell, they're not necessarily playing that way to where it's tough sled, man. But you gave up 81, so it's not on the offense really.
You need more from Dylan Mitchell. He had 4 points. He's kind of been a no-show. He had some, good defensive plays. He's
great defensively and snatching rebounds, and he had one where he went in transition and slammed it. So good game.
I guess it's just, for me, it's like maybe I need to look at it in a different lens. Like, he is what he is. It's just when you see the frame and the athleticism and, even when he's shooting free throws, like the form is there. I want more from Dylan Mitchell, and maybe
I just don't think you're going to get it. I think it's an unfair expectation, right?
Well, I don't care. Dylan Mitchell on the floor, I want him to have more than 4 points. I'll say that. No matter what. I don't care if he doesn't have he can't dribble with both sides of the ball or both hands.
Had a nice turnaround early.
He did. Listen, he didn't play a bad game. It's not like you're watching it going, wow, that guy sucks. It's like, I mean, he went 2 or 3.
He just doesn't do anything offensively, right?
Yeah,
he doesn't really look for his spots.
And I know they brought up CMOS, and I don't know if you noticed, but he clearly had a shoulder injury today. He was grabbing his shoulder constantly. He did hit 3 of 6 from 3. So at this point in time, with how CMOS has been playing, I will take 3 of 6 from 3 with 9 points from CMOS Lukosius. But he's clearly got a shoulder thing. I don't know if it popped out of socket or what's going on, but I'm sure Wes is. Chuck, by the way, was that Wes's first tech this year?
I think so. Yeah, even the game where he said everyone should get their money back, I don't think he got teed up in that one.
I don't think he's been teed. I mean, he's probably been teed up like twice in his entire tenure. And he deserved, like, at some point, Wes needs to go get a tech. Like, we were getting so hosed that I wanted Wes to get ejected.
That swing killed it, though. That's the double-edged sword of it. That swing killed it.
No, I mean, honestly, I'm so against when people go like,
Josh Reed had just hit a 3 to cut it to 4.
When they say the coach needs to go get a tech to like change the momentum, I'm like, don't. How about you just don't do that? Because that's 2 points and they get the ball. Yeah, it was a 5-point swing. All of a sudden it was 9. So it sucked. But I totally understand the frustration from Wes, even though I know you claim Day got hammered on that. I don't know if that was really a foul. Looking back at it, that might have been one where I was like, but hey, Wes was pissed off, and you had to let him know. Yeah,
storylines. Just roll with it. It was all the refs' fault. We played well. Played well for what? 28, 32 minutes of 40. Like, you'll take it most of these games. Iowa State on the road is not most of these games, but Iowa State, man, they're in a good spot. And here's what I wanted to bring up about programs, because there were shows earlier in the year. There was one where I was in a frenzy about how angry I was with Coach Wes Miller, CWM. I love when people do that on Twitter, right? They do the CWM when his name is Wes.
I don't get it.
And CSS, Coach Scott
Coach
Satterfield.
Wes Miller. Coach Wes Miller. Well, once
But
you're a coach, Chuck, you can never be called anything other than a coach. I mean, I saw my Pee Wee football coach 2 weeks ago at the grocery store. I was like, "What's up, coach?" He hadn't coached in 20 years. Doesn't matter. He's a coach forever.
He's a coach forever, man. And I was saying that, like, we deserve better than this as a fan base. Like, it's been years of struggle. This is 4 years in a program. Like, and I pointed to Louisville and I said, look, we're on the same range as Louisville in terms of overall programs and success and whatever it may be, and got roasted by a Louisville fan. And after commenting with him a few times, he agreed with my stance. And at this point, I think we'd probably hit up a brewery together and be boys, because we had like the 4 chat. Anyways, enough of that. ADD's kicking in right now. I basically said, my take was, I mean, before the year 2000, like, they were pretty considerable in terms of like accolades. Louisville was right there with Cincy. They were head to head. We had the Coach Bob Huggins. They had Rick Pitino. It seemed like it was kind of even. At the end of the day, what they've done the last 25 years, winning a title, asterisk next to it, but winning a title.
Oh, Chuck.
What's up?
Chuck, Louisville and UC, it's just hard to compare because the fan base and the resources that it's a top 5 job in the country. Like, it just really is. UC is not quite there. I'd say UC's in the top 25. Louisville is legitimately right. They're right below like UNC and Duke. Really, like, straight up. It's like Louisville is right on that tier. I picked a bad comparison,
below. Houdini. Let me get on with my point. I then said Texas Tech on another show. Texas Tech beat us, and I'm like, God, why can't we have nice things? Like, they're Texas Tech. Like, we should be on par with this program. And their fans came at me on Twitter. It went semi-viral around Lubbock. I'm a clown, apparently, according to a bunch of these comments. And they were all saying, like, who does Cincinnati think they are to say they have a better program than Texas Tech? I mean, history says, even in the last like 25 years, it says Cincinnati has been a significantly better program than Texas Tech. If you go back last 15, last 10, definitely Texas Tech. But like, where do you draw the line? How do you determine a program? A school like Gonzaga has a 20-year run with Mark Few, and they go from like Cinderella at best, 8 seed is their ceiling, to all of a sudden they're a blue blood in college basketball. How quickly it flips. And the reason I bring this all up is because Iowa State is a perfect example of someone that I look at and say, we should have as good of things as Iowa State. And we just don't, man. They're in a much better place in life right now than we are as a program. That place was rocking. They got a damn good team. They got a damn good coach. It changes quickly. When is it going to change for us?
Yeah, well,
where are we in the tier system? I mean,
is TJ Otzelberger? Is that how you pronounce it? I know I was saying that off air. Is that right? Otzelberger?
Yes,
so
sir.
He was a guy. I mean, he came in after a 2-win season and first year head coach, pretty much a no name. Because a lot of times when you turn a program around, it's guys like, Pearl and Rick Pitino. They come in, they flip it immediately. He wasn't a big name by any means. TJ Otzelberger looks like Johnny Bravo out there. I think he's got blonde highlights that he's doing. Looks like he's never missed a tricep day in his life. He's bursting out of that polo every time. But that man can coach basketball, and he can find talent. They were saying it on the midweek show, Niehaus and Lilly. I mean, they got 6 out of their 8 rotation guys are mid-major transfers. And our track record with mid-major transfers, I don't know if it's a scouting thing or a development thing, but they've been able to pluck these guys, and they're immediately massive contributors in a Power 5 conference. And not only, good. I mean, Iowa State is a national contender this year. They could win the whole damn thing.
I'll take them to the Final Four. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's nothing that they do bad. Like, you can't watch them and be like, they do this poorly. Like, they're pretty much good at everything that they do. And they got so many different guys. And like I said, they're plucking them. When's the last guy? They were actually saying it. Mid-major transfer to UC. Javen Cumberland.
Kane Broom.
Kane Broom is probably the best that I can remember, which isn't great. Those guys were good, sure. But like, what about like a Soleil Boom or something, or Oliveri, like guys like that?
Nothing.
Like, we just don't.
We've gotten
need to figure that
JUCO
out.
over the years. It's never been a mid-major transfer, man.
Yeah, John Williamson. Shout out John Williamson, JUCO guy, Cincinnati State, I believe. But yeah, we got to figure something out as far as getting guys like this. And maybe it is a coaching thing. Maybe if these guys went to Iowa State, it'd be different. But we're not really ragging on the coaches right now. I think Wes has done a phenomenal job over the last 4 or 5 games. But this one hurts, man. But as far as what was your question, Chuck? I just went on a tangent. I don't even have ADD. What was the?
But hey, we're both doing it, man. That game just ripped our hearts out. But it was basically talking about like programs, like where are we on the tier? How do we get back to the? Because Huggins, if that 20-year stretch is true, like Iowa State right now, they feel like they're in 1998 Bob Huggins, right? Like they are in the prime of things, and all it takes is another decade of what they're doing to all of a sudden Iowa State, like they're known as a basketball school. Since he was right there, and then Huggins leaves, Cronin has some years that fall off. There wasn't enough tournament success. We don't have guys in the NBA. There are a lot of things that contribute to it, but like, where are we in terms of the tiers? Because it feels like we go on these road games consistently, and don't win them very much, and not many of the home games either. Like we still don't have a back-to-back winning streak against traditional Big 12 teams. I think we're like 3-12 against them.
Well, it depends on how you're going to look at, what do you define as, the state of the program? Like if you look historically, you see it's going to take a long time for us to fall off historically. Over the last 10 years or so, we're falling out of that I wouldn't say top tier, but that second tier, we're starting to fall out of that. When you don't make the tournament for 6 straight years, people forget about you. Like, wait a minute, is UC good at basketball?
Georgetown was good?
Yeah, right. Like it's like
they were damn
Wake
good.
Forest.
Pittsburgh was good.
Like Wake Forest with like Skip Prosser,
Notre
it's like,
Dame.
like Wake Forest turned into like they're on the bubble now, I guess, with us. But you can, if you start stacking up seasons like this over and over again, then all of a sudden you start turning into like a Nebraska football where people are just begging to get back to what they think they're better than they are, and they're not. It's like, dude, Matt Rule, listen, you guys stink. Okay, I don't know if you're turning it around over there. So Wes is going to get another year, right? And we buried him, and he still has opportunities this season to make the tournament. But I will say this, I'm still excited that he has clearly, from a coaching standpoint, actually made adjustments and changed this offense completely. I know a lot of it has to do with guys knocking down shots, but we saw multiple 50-point games in a row. We were the worst offensive from every statistical analysis, the Maya, the Ken Palm, the worst offense in Power 5 basketball. And I would love to see the stats now in the last 4 games. We're probably sitting there in the top 40 in offense. So that's a huge change in adjustments by Wes Miller and the staff. So you got to give some, kudos there.
All right, shout out to those that hopped in on the super chat. We always appreciate the donations. They do not anymore go into the Fire Wes Miller Fund or the buyout fund. Maybe for next year things go awry, but as of right now, yeah, I mean, you got to give him his flowers. He's been coaching well, and he's been doing about as good as he can with the holes that this roster has. And I mentioned a lot of those holes are big men. So maybe this will go into the NIL fund to bring in a big man that can actually score the basketball for UC. It's been so damn long. Trevor Hansel says, how much for Bryce James? He's committed to Arizona. I'd throw $1 million at him just to get Braun in the seats with Edgerrin and Roy Williams.
Yeah, it'd be worth it just because you'd get a picture of LeBron wearing, a UC hat. That's where if Bryce James stinks, doesn't matter. LeBron James is now a fan of UC. We need that, like Tupac. Everyone's got the Tupac picture of him wearing the C-Paul, the old school C-Paul. We need that again with a guy that isn't Nick Lachey. A little bit more clout than Nick Lachey wearing the UC stuff. So yeah, hell, we'll take Bryce.
Shane Meyer pops in. I don't know if he's an Iowa State fan that's enjoying the program, but if he is, if he's not, he seems to know a lot about Iowa State. Says Hilton Magic also includes a lot of things, including getting calls. It is what it is. No apologies. Hey, man, if we were on the other side of this, we wouldn't even mention the refs, right? Unless you check Twitter, you wouldn't even know. Never. We're more physical. We're getting the bucket more. We're demanding the whistle. You got to create your own luck. But I did not see it from that lens. But we do appreciate the $5 there from you fellas. What else are we getting into? I guess.
Are you gonna put Trace's comment, the guy that runs the company? I feel like you have to, just from a business standpoint. There you
Why
go.
don't you read it, Houdini?
Does Wes's staff have a scouting interior players problem? I only ask because he had a guy taking a scholarship for multiple years who can't play at UNC Asheville. Vic leaves and boom. Feel bad for the point guards. What do you think, Chuck?
I think the first couple of years, 1000%. Like some of the recruits that he brought in, the Rob Finnesseys of the world, the Jarrett Hensleys, the AJ McGinnis, and you could say he just had to fill out a roster, right? He's thrown into a bad spot. And over the years, we've just seen more and more where the roster construction doesn't make a lot of sense. Last year, you were given a scholarship to Sage Tolentino. I'm the only person on the internet that brings this up, but then you see it again this year with CJ Frederick, who's not getting minutes, and other players down the bench, and you just feel like you're a player short, and that player may have been Tyler McKinley, but why not get another Tyler McKinley or someone else that's ready to sit at the end of the bench? Like, this is an NBA where you have cap space and, you have $500,000 to complete your 15th roster spot or whatever. You can go out and just add more talent, like continuously get better and make guys fight for their jobs. And if that's what he's asking here, I think there may be some truth to that. In terms of Vic leaving and boom, I thought Vic was good for about 85% of his UC career. He just had a stretch specifically last year where he couldn't hit a shot. Confidence was shot. He was ill. You add those things together and it just it didn't really work out. But
with the big men specifically, it is alarming to a degree that we're talking about, a coach that watched these guys. We don't have a single guy that you want to throw the ball to with his back to the basket and think you're getting a bucket. Not a single guy on this roster. Not one. Victor Locken, no bias, even though he's a big fan of the program. We love Victor Locken. He would be by far our best interior post scorer on this roster. It wouldn't even be close. And if McKinley was going to be something that maybe we didn't see and Wes hyped him up a little bit, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I doubt it. Being a freshman big, it's pretty tough unless you're, one of the top guys in the class. You have to figure out a way to we got to have the worst interior scoring is from the big perspective in the Big 12. Every time you look at a roster and you do the breakdown, and Aziz has played fine. Aziz has done fine, but we know what he is. He's not a guy that you're going to feed the ball to and have an inside-out game. He's not.
That's the only way he can't be effective. He's scoring off dunks, off other players making plays. Like, that's the only way he can't score is when you get him the ball. It's almost an automatic turnover.
Oh, 100%. And Arrington Page is the only guy that even shows flashes of being able to have an actual move. But as you can see, he's not ready. Like, maybe he blooms into something that we're not seeing right now. He does have the basic footwork, and he's got some decent moves around the post, but he's not ready to play against Iowa State and start putting up numbers. It's just not going to happen. So Wes, obviously he's not an idiot. He's going to go into the offseason and he'll be targeting a big, like a legit big. God forbid if he can shoot threes. God forbid if he can shoot a mid-range jumper, because we don't have a single one of those guys on the floor either. So I think Wes knows that. It sucks that, we're in the season and we can't change that, because that's what it is. Now we're playing Josh Reed at the 4, and we love Josh. We do. But you need to figure out something there and strengthen that interior. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle offensively.
Josh Reed, man, I legit, I shrieked. That's a word that I never use. I don't shriek. I shrieked after he hit that three-pointer to bring it from 63-56 to 59. The announcers were like, where do the Bearcats turn to offense? Reed lets it fly. Got it. And I'm just like, oh, my God, it's another Josh Reed game. It was right on cue. I love it, man.
I was watching the game. I go, feed Reed. I'm like, let this guy cook. Everybody ISO. Get out of his way. Let this man go to work. He's just doing all the little things, just hitting open threes. It means a lot in college basketball, especially with a team that before the last few games was shooting, 8% from three. Just knock down your open looks. And he's been doing that. And he still shoots it to the moon. He shoots it to the damn moon every time. But he's been awesome. He really has. He's played great defense, too. Let's not slip on that. He played some great defense tonight. Had a nice little backdoor pick on when he was in the post. I thought we were going to win the game when he did that. I really did. Here we are.
Reed's been known to make grown men shriek. That's 100% factual. I want to give everyone a positive. Got a few more things I want to get to before we end the show. But one positive we definitely want to get to is the fact that it's not too late. It's never too late, right? Like the Cats can still turn around this program under Wes Miller next season if he can get a few things to go right. And then you put a few good years together and it changes quickly. My first job out of college was the Dothan, Alabama reporter, right, Houdini, and in Montgomery, Alabama. And the two teams I covered were Avery Johnson's basketball teams, Avery Johnson's Alabama Crimson Tide, and I think Bruce Pearl's first season at Auburn. And these teams sucked. Not even NIT. They hadn't done anything in forever. Auburn specifically hadn't been to the tournament in like 15 years. They played today as number 1 and number 2 in the country. So it changes quick, right? The outlook can change quick. Abayev, Tillery, McKinley, some of these guys could come into the program next year and it's like, oh shit, we're sick. But unfortunately, we've been saying that for 4 years.
No, but I would say this: if this is the Jizzel James that we can get returning next year, I feel a heck of a lot better. If you can just
people are
find
going to
guys
throw
to go
some
around,
money at him, man. That's a storyline.
we're going to do this song and dance again. They did it last season. We're going to do it again. I guess you have to
do
in
it
college
again.
basketball.
He's going to be one of the most coveted players in the country. He's averaging 25 over his last 5, it feels like.
His dad made $80 million in the NFL. I don't know, and I've debated this with people. I'm like, I don't know if Jizzle James like needs the biggest bag. Now, if he would have continued playing like he did a month ago, we still would have wanted him back. But I think he would have just left. Like if Jizzle James wants to return and he believes in Wes Miller, I think regardless of what somebody throws him, he's going to stay at UC. But yeah, I guess we're going to have to get ready for that whole. We're going to do it with every player too. Who else do we actually? I guess Tyler Betsy's another big one that could be leaving. That has been, put on.
Could be. It just means at the end of every single season you have to reevaluate, right?
Right. He's been thrown on the Trilly Discord. And that's floated by his agent. Like his agent was like, he might be considering transferring, but now he's been playing some minutes. So I think Betsy will stay. But if you can keep a core of guys, Jizzle James is a guy that can put up 20 a night. I love that, dude. You figure out some bigs.
Would you keep Dan Skillings?
Oh, man. Ooh.
You believe in him enough from what you saw like last year to say maybe he could turn this around?
Yeah, I would say this: if Dan Skillings wants to return and we're not paying him a huge bag of money to do so, we've seen what he can do.
I would pay for his education and nothing else. I wouldn't give him I'd say if you want to be a Bearcat, you're coming here for free. Your allotment's going to a buyout. You're paying other players, and you're getting your education, and you're earning it.
Yeah, you just give him the scholarship, just a full ride, just education only. He's been bad, dude. And it's not only like he's just missing shots. He's playing just sloppy basketball, turning the ball over. Terrible.
Lost his confidence. See, we saw it with Jizzle.
But either way, even if you lose your confidence, man, that doesn't give you any, excuse to be lackadaisical on the defensive end too. He's letting guys blow by him. He's not boxing out. It's like if you're not going to make shots, you're not going to score. You better do the little things. You better do the hustle plays. You better box out. You better get the rebounds, all that shit. And he has not done any of it. He's been a negative. He's been an actual negative the last few games. And that's insane to say because I would have said last year, I'd go, Dan Skillings is a guy that you can rely on to put up 12 points and he'll have 11 rebounds and he'll have probably 56 deflections. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet. He does all the little bullshit that you love to see as like a coach. And he has done nothing like that since that injury, really. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how
been tough, man. All right, $2 from Christian Wolf. If Wes gets fired, should we go after Pat Kelsey? You give him a call, but one, it's Xavier ties, right? Xavier ties from Pat Kelsey, A, which is always tough in this city. And B, again, going back to the program discussion at the very beginning of the show, like Louisville's in a better spot than us right now in the KFC Yum Center.
Pat Kelsey, I feel like I'm doing the same thing where I said Victor Locken is not listening to the show. And then he just popped on. Pat Kelsey is not even considering UC. Why the hell would he leave Louisville? First off, he's a Xavier guy, and he's in a perfect position. You couldn't ask for a better spot that Pat Kelsey is in right now.
He loves high school
Kelsey,
football, man. He loves Quatmans and
dude,
zips. He's just a Cincy guy. You never know.
he came in. Elder High School, 2011, and he gave us like a pump up speech before the playoffs started. And this guy, like I wish that Cunningham would have saw this in Pat Kelsey because I think we could have got him a couple years ago, especially like the Brandon hire. We could have got Pat Kelsey because if you sit down with Pat Kelsey, I mean, this guy was. I mean, I'm barely 6 feet tall. We were like 12-10, and he's like in my ear going, "You can be anything you want to be." He goes, "You guys can win a state title." I'm like, I walked out of that gym. I go, we could fucking win the whole thing. I go, we could win the whole damn thing.
And then Carl Kramer said, "See ya, Elder."
Yeah, we lost to Princeton by like 19 points like the next day. But I'll tell you what, that leader of men, Pat Kelsey's awesome, motivator of people. But don't even bring up Pat Kelsey again. He's not coaching UC unless something drastically changes with his current situation.
But thank you for the $2, Christian. On to Jack, who says, "How do we help Aziz down the stretch?" It's a good question, man. I mean, how do you help Aziz? Because the issue is he's open so many times on the high post, but why would you give it to him? Unless you're stuck, there's really no reason to give it to him because it's not even like in his triple threat, like he's making the right decisions. He's not an offensive guy. What we saw at Utah Valley, that hook shot, that was a mirage.
The way to help Aziz Bandaogo is to not pass him the ball in the post. Just don't do it. I actually blame the guards. Like they're feeding him the rock. I'm like, dude, that's not his game. Why are you doing that? It's essentially a turnover. The way to help him is to space the floor and have shooters out there so he can just roam around the rim, get the lobs. When somebody penetrates and the guy helps, he can dunk it. That's what he is. That's what he's going to do. And Aziz has been fine, right? Like I got no issue with what Aziz did tonight. I think he could have had a lot, uh, more rebounds, especially on the defensive rebounds and not giving up all those offensive boards. But Aziz is never going to turn into some guy that you're feeding into the post. Like it's just not going to happen. It's not his game.
All right, final score from this one. It's Iowa State 81. It's Cincinnati 70. Still a clear path to get back on the right side of the bubble. Like we know what it takes. You have games against West Virginia, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Win 5 of 6, you're in. Most likely. Win 5 of 6, get to 500 in the conference. Hopefully one of those wins is on the road at Houston, but if not, you better beat everyone else. I would think that those 5 wins would get you in, right? No bad losses. Like road loss to Utah is the worst one that you have. We don't have any of those McNeese losses or like an out of conference loss against Seton Hall or anything like that that some other bubble teams may have.
Well, if the good news is if you look at the bubble, it's disgusting. I mean, these bubble teams are horrible. Like I was thinking, just looking at our quads, and I'm like, holy shit,
Xavier's ahead of us. How? Just better wins. It's Marquette. It's that road Marquette win. They have that. We don't.
It doesn't matter because Xavier kind of sealed their fate. They have no opportunities to jump. They're going to miss the tournament unless they go on a huge run and win multiple games of the Big East tournament, which they could. That's fine. But we actually have quad 1 opportunities in front of us, and it starts with at West Virginia on Wednesday. So we got an extra day of rest. Wednesday game. That is, you win that game, then I feel good. You lose that game, it's probably over. It's probably the end of the show. Curtains closing if you lose to West Virginia on the road. But I like our chances against West Virginia, dude. Like I know that was the worst game I think I've ever seen a UC team play at home against West Virginia. The score did not tell the story of that game. I like how we match up against them. They don't have their best player. I think they've just vastly overachieved this season. It's been a great story. I think we're a better basketball team than West Virginia. You got to win that game. You win that game, then all of a sudden 4 out of 5 doesn't seem as daunting.
One game at a time, man. It's coach speak, but here on Chatterbox Bearcats, we do believe it. Final thing I wanted to get into was just the staggered times. 2 hours. They place these games one after another. It didn't get to me because I had the Watch ESPN app. But if this was a CBS Sports Network game, I would have been pulling out my hair. You missed Cincinnati's best 15 minutes of the season if you did not have that, or if you were watching at a bar or something like that that didn't have streaming, because the West Virginia Baylor game went into overtime, and literally they flipped it over to UC with 5 minutes to go in the first half. It's beyond frustrating what that has become. It's every single game. It gets worse and worse.
I'm getting so pissed off. I got to log into all this shit. I'm like, wait a minute. It's not letting me go to ESPN3, whatever the hell that is. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to find it on the 9,000 games they have. Just do a buffer in between the games. Give it like 15 minutes. Granted, this one went into overtime, so we'd have been screwed either way. But in the year 2025, we have to have a better way to watch basketball, right? It's just insane to me. It's like we've probably missed, is this last 3 games? We've missed the first like 10 minutes. If you're watching just on like the national TV networks, we've missed like legitimately half of the first half.
Brutal, man. You absolutely hate to see it. All right, dude. Dogs are going crazy upstairs. It's time for their walk. It's time for me to, I guess, have a very strong bourbon or something, because that was tough. One of those games you felt like the Cats had a chance to at least compete down the stretch, and at the under 4-minute timeout, we do what we normally do, Houdini, set up the equipment. It's going to be another one of those shows. Chatterbox Bearcats, check us out on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to both so you have them in your back pocket. We're here after every game. I'm Chuck Walter. He is Houdini. See ya, everyone.